Welcome everybody to our discussion on how to build a stick figure lamp. So our stick figure lamp looks something like this, is a general shape of it. And we need to figure out, first of all, how big we're going to make everything. So I thought one fun thing might do is that we're going to actually model the different ratios of sizes for the lower leg and the hips and the thighs and the torso and everything based on your measurements. So it'll be kind of like you're making yourself in a lamp. So you can see that it's made of a couple of components. I've already taken all the bolts out so I can pull it apart now. I've got two lower legs. The head's going to try and fall off now. I've got, well, there's the two lower legs look like this. And then I've got this sort of thigh region here, like that. And then I've got the torso, which is the main part of the body. It looks like this. And then finally, I've got the neck and the head connected. So we need to figure out what measurements we're going to use for all those things. So if you look at my screen, I've got a data table up, and these are the measurements we need to take to figure this out. So the first thing I'm going to do is doing all my own measurements. So you're going to do your own. It'll be good to have a tape measure and maybe someone to help you hold it and read it for you as you take these measurements. But the first one we're going to take is our total height. So I'm going to step right here, and I'm just going to get mine that's kind of close. I think right about there. And I'm getting 74 inches for my total height, and that's with my shoes on. I'm fine with that outcome. So 74 inches. Now I need to do my lower leg. So I'm going to go from the floor to the, I'm going to find the middle where the joint is, the middle of my knee, and I'm going to measure to the middle of my knee. And for me, that's 21 inches. And now I'm going to do my thigh, which goes back to that center of my knee. Find the center again, and I'm going to come to the center of my hips. And for me, that's 16 inches. Now the hips, I need my side-to-side width of my hips. How wide are my hips? So I'm going to start here. This is the one that's hard to do by yourself, honestly. I'm going to do a 17 on that one. I think that's pretty good. And then torso. Now I'm going to go from the center of my hips and measure to my shoulder. Again, this is the one that's way easier with another human to help you. All right, there's the center of my hips. I think that's the top of my shoulders. Maybe more like that. I'm going to go with 25 on mine. So mine might look a little goofy because I didn't do a good job measuring, but if you do a good job measuring, the proportions will work because there'll be a human proportion. There will be you. And in the end, it does look goofy. It's because maybe you look goofy. Who knows? Maybe that was the whole problem. Hey, so this next one is us establishing the ratio. So what a ratio is just a comparison of two numbers. And what we want to do is we want to know how big your lower leg is compared to your overall height. Like what proportion of your height is your overall leg. And we can use that number later. But to do that, we have to divide. And we always divide the part divided by the total. So here the part is your lower leg, how long it is, and the total is your total height. So we always do the part times the total when we do these kind of calculations. Now, the total height, we don't need the ratio for because the ratio of the total height to the total height is just 1. But we could just leave that one blank. And now for this one, we're going to do 21 inches divided by 74 inches. And when we do that, I'll put 12 instead of 21. 21. We are going to get 21 divided by 74 is 0.28. So 0.28 is the answer there. And notice how there's inches on top and bottom of the fraction, so they cancel out. There's no units on this. What this tells me is my lower leg is 28% of my overall height. So just over a quarter of my height comes from my lower leg. That's what this number means. So when we choose a height for our stick figure, we're going to make sure that the lower leg component is 0.28 times the total height, or 28% of the total height. That will shrink our measurements down to the stick figure measurements. All right, and we're just going to keep doing that for each one. So my thigh is going to be 16 inches divided by, again, the same height, 74 inches, all comparing back to the same number, which is the total height. I do 16 divided by 74, and I get 22. So 0.22 or 22%. So my thigh makes up less proportion of my weight or my height than my lower leg does. All right, now the hips is just going to be the same thing, 17 inches divided by 74 inches. And so 17 divided by 74 is going to give me 0.23. And I'm just rounding these to do 2 decimal places. Make sure to round them though, because for example, mine was 0.229 that time. So I rounded up to 0.23. And the last one is 25 inches divided by 74 inches equals, and this is going to be 0.34, 0.34. Okay. Maybe I'll put an NA here, not applicable. All right. Now what we need to do is we've taken our measurements. We found what proportion of our measurement is compared to our total height. We need to decide on the total height of our stick figure. Now the one I built for my first one was about 75 centimeters. I'm going to build a slightly shorter one at 60 centimeters overall. But this is me just deciding how big I want this thing to be. You've got to decide how big yours is going to be. It's just like you got to just decide. And now once I have this number, I can figure out all of these other numbers just by taking this 60 centimeters times this 0.28 will give me how big my shrunken leg, lower leg should be. So this is going to be 60 centimeters times 0.2, oops, 0.28. Oh, that's why, because it didn't do times. And that's going to equal 16.8. And maybe I'm going to round that up to 17. Because 0.2, I'll round them to the nearest centimeter, I think, or maybe nearest half centimeter. All right, and then I'm going to keep doing that. So this one's going to be 60 centimeters times 0.22. So 60 times 0.22 is 13 centimeters. Oh, there'd be no harm in keeping the decimal places if you wanted to. You could just type them into Fusion and it'll be just as easy. And then we're going to do 60 centimeters. Well, maybe just do this. Maybe this is faster. And this one is 0.23. And this one is 0.34. And then this answer, 60 times 0.23 is 13.8. So I'm going to round that to 14. And this one is 60 times 0.34 is 20.4. So I'm going to round that to 20.5. So I'm going to go to the nearest half centimeter. And yeah, that looks good. Those are my measurements. So here, there, there, and there. So what I'm going to do is, I'll just leave it just like this. So now if I build this 60 centimeter stick figure person and I do it with these measurements, I'm going to get something that is going to look something like my proportions. So there we go. Let's go to Fusion. Now, once we're in Fusion, I'm actually going to move this over to the other screen. Once we're in Fusion, we just need those numbers. Let's get them in right away so we don't forget them. So first thing I'm going to do those, I'm going to save my file. I think that's a good place for it. I'm going to make sure I'm choosing a good folder for it to be in or a good project for it to be in. And I think, unless I have something here that says desk lamps or lamps. Yeah, I have lamps here. Awesome. So I'm going to put it in the lamps project. And I'm going to call it stick figure lamp. And I'm going to do mine 60 centimeters because I need to distinguish it. I've done it twice now. So I want to have a couple different. I want to assign it something different, a new name. All right, so save. Awesome. Now I'm done with the save. I'm ready to rock and roll. And now I'm going to go down to modify, and I'm going to input all my data into Fusion. This way I don't have to type it in each time, and it just helps me not make mistakes as much. So first parameter is I'm going to say lower leg. And I'm going to say that's going to be, in terms of centimeters, that's going to be 17 for me. And then I'm going to say, okay. So actually I'm going to say center of knee to floor. That will remind me what that measurement is supposed to be of. Awesome. I'll do another parameter. I'm going to do one for each. So I'm going to do a thigh one next. And for me, that is 13 centimeters. And this is middle of knee to middle of hips. And I'm going to do another one. Hips. And this is 14. And I'm going to do side to side width of hips. And torso. My last torso. Enter expression. This one's going to be the 20.5 centimeters. And this is center of hips to top of shoulder. All right. Now I have all those in. I need another parameter. I need the thickness of the material. So I need to know how thick my plywood is. For this, I know how thick of the plywood I'm going to use, but each batch of plywood is a little bit different. So what you need to do is go grab 10 sheets of the plywood that you're going to be using, squeeze them together even with a clamp, and then use a caliper to measure the thickness of that, and then put that value in here. When I did that, I got, so this is going to be called thickness, I got 2.665 centimeters. And what I'm going to do, instead of, because that's for 10 sheets, I want it for one sheet here. But instead of just typing in for one sheet, I'm going to do divided by 10. And let Fusion 360 do the math for me. I'm going to leave it just like that. That way I get the most accurate data possible in Fusion 360. Okay? And I prevent myself from making some silly mistake when I do a divide, right? Because you could do this without being 10. You could do it as 7 or 8 or whatever. It's just nice to put the math in there and let Fusion do the math. It's good practice. Thickness, and this is the material thickness. So you need that number. Your number may be mine, but it may also not be mine. So make sure you're doing that measurement yourself. Okay, and I think that's okay. So I've got all my parameters in for now. I can add more later if I need to. And now it's just a matter of starting the model. So we're going to start from the ground up. We are going to create, so you can see how this is built. We're going to start on the outside, and we're going to create this outside shape. We're not going to worry about this triangle yet. We're going to cut this cutout part later. We're going to make all this solid across here. But this is a 10 layers wide. So there's 2 layers of plywood for this cutout part, 2 layers here, 2 for the middle cutout, 2 there, and 2 there, for a total of 10 layers of plywood. So when we do the width of this, we're going to do it as 10 thicknesses. And I'll show you that in just a second. But we're going to first start by doing this and doing this part. And then we're going to extrude it back. Let's do it. Okay, so here we go. We start here, and I'm going to choose this side one, just like that. And I'm going to put mine right there. I'm going to pull a rectangle out. And this, we're basically doing the foot right now. So this foot is going to have, a square dimension of 10 thicknesses on all sides. So this is going to be 10 thick, going up and down, and that's that 1.843. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to say thickness, enter, times 10. That's set, that one. And then down here, I'm going to use some number, we can always change this in a second. Let's see what it looks like if I choose 7.5. And we can adjust that number when we see how long the leg is. Get a good proportion. So that's the foot part. So that's that rectangle. Now we need to draw up to this rectangle. This is where our measurements are going to come in. So I'm going to start here in this corner again and drag up. And again, I want the width of this to be thickness times 10. And then I want the height to be whatever, so I hit tab to get up to the other one. I want it to be the lower leg height, because this is going to measure from here. This rectangle is going to go right to the middle of this rounded over part here. That's going to be that measurement I want. So I want to put here lower leg. Let me zoom out. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Bam. And now I'm going to look at my foot. Like my foot looks like a pretty good, like you want kind of a bigger foot because it's what it's going to be standing on. So I like the 7.5 centimeters for it still. If it was much bigger than that, I might want to shrink it down a little bit. But that looks pretty proportionate for a foot right there. All right. Now we need to do this top rounded over part. So we're right up here at this part. To do that, we're just going to grab a circle tool, super easy. Go to the middle point where you see the triangle. Go to the middle point. Start your middle circle there, and then go right to the outside corner and click again. And now you have that rounded over top part. Super easy to do. Okay, at this point, we just need to extrude this out into existence. So I'm going to hit E for extrude. I'm going to choose all these pieces, and I'm going to extrude one thickness. It doesn't really matter which way I extrude this at this point. And I'm going to click OK. And now I have this outside face of my leg. So now what I need to do, this isn't actually solid in here. This mostly is empty. All this through here is empty. And then this part, only this part, the very top up here is actually solid 10 layers of wood. So we're going to do that next part next. We're going to take it and we're going to extrude out a chunk of the top. So I'm going to come back here to the side. And actually, I'm going to take a look at which side's which. So for me, this is going to be it's going to go like this. This is the outside here. I'm going to extrude back towards my face. That's how I want to do it. So I'm going to click on the side I want to extrude from and go to here. And then I'm going to come down here. And I'm going to just draw a line straight across. And then I'm going to dimension that line. So I push the D key. I'm going to dimension that line. Oh, I did it from the center. That's okay. And I want to come down. Let me just take a measurement real quick. Here we go. I'm just measuring how far I want to come down off this line. And I'm thinking 5 centimeters will get me down below. So I'm going to go 5 centimeters here. That places this line. This is the part that I'm now going to extrude up from here. So extrude, and I'm going to grab this part. And now I already have 1 layer done. I need to do 8 more layers across. And then that 10th layer I'll handle with making this outside piece. So I'm doing the middle 8 layers now. So this is going to be thickness times 8. Enter. And that's my way across right now. Awesome. And now from there, I just need to make this bottom piece up on the top. So To do that's pretty easy. Actually, we're going to use a project tool to do all the drawing for us. So I'm going to put a sketch on this little piece here. And then I'm going to use my project tool. So I'm going to push the P key. And I'm going to highlight the bottom face. And that's going to draw it on my sketch real quick for me. So now I have that sketch there. I'm going to say, okay, I've got my projection. And now I'm going to extrude this for my last outside layer. I'm going to click both of those, and I'm going to make sure it's in the right direction. And it is. So I could do a positive number here. And I'm having trouble. Enter for thickness, and then enter one more time to actually accept that thickness. And now we have something that looks sort of like our foot. All right, so let's cut the hole now. Before we cut the hole, we do need to take a measurement. So you'll need to get the bolt that you're going to use. Make sure you get your bolts, put them in your project bin so you have them for later. I'm going to grab my caliper out. Make sure it's fully closed. Turn it on. That'll zero it at 0. And I'm going to measure my bolt by putting it in there just like that. And this is measuring at 3.98 millimeters. So I'm going to actually round that. I don't want to round it up very much because I do want a nice snug fit. I don't want a loose joint. So I'm going to go with 4 millimeters, which is 0.4 centimeters. So I'm going to come to this side. I'm going to draw on here. I'm going to grab this. And notice how I get that little circle symbol right there? That means I'm at the center of the other circle I drew. So I know I'm right centered now, so I can just click, and then I'm going to say 0.4. Click enter, and then I'm going to do the extrude command, click there, and then I'm just going to drag it all the way through, and maybe I'm going to come over here where it says distance and say all the way through. And then I'm going to click OK. Now I also have my hole built. I still need to build the slots, but we'll do that in just a second. Yeah. All right. So the next thing to do is we need to build all the walls for our foot, right? So you need to build like surfaces across here. To do that, I'm going to start in the bottom of the foot and work my way up the back and around the side. Actually, I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to cut the joint first so I see how far up I need to make my calf. So this joint has enough bend in it so you can see that I've cut back one edge. And on this one, this inside part is also cut back at an angle inside there. And that way this joint can... Oops, goes backwards. That way this joint, as it flexes, you can see how those two pieces kind of fold into each other. So the angle that I'm going for here is about 135 degrees of tilt into it. And I want it to be tilting away from the toe. So I want my slice to come in down this angle here. So to do this, it's a kind of a cool trick. So I need to create a construction plane that's at that 135 degrees. Here's how I do that. If I go here to construct and I go to tangent plane. I'm using tangent plane because I've got this curved surface here that I want to have a plane on. So I'm going to click it here to put a plane tangent to it. And what tangent means, it's like barely, just goes and barely touches the surface. So it's kind of like flat to the surface at that point. Let me show you what it does. I'm going to click on right here. So that little yellow line here is my tangent plane. I'm going to zoom in some so you can see a little better. And as I tip it, notice how this plane, this surface, is like the same slope as the circle at that point. So as I go around this circle, it's going to do that. And I want it to be like over here. Let's see. That would be 180. So then I want it to be 45 degrees from that, 135 degrees like this. So this number might be different for you because you may, it may have rotated like the other direction first. So make sure you're getting something. What you want to do is go to flat, and then you want to go 45 degrees, and you want to do this away from the toes. So you want to be sloping back away from the toes like this. So if I go 45 degrees from 180, that's where it says is 180. If I go 45 degrees back from that, that's going to put me at 135. So that's where I want to be for me. This number might be something different for you. Then I'm going to say, okay, now I've got my construction plane cut. That's going to be the bottom of my joint of these cutouts that I'm going to do. For the foot, I'm going to do a cutout, 2 thicknesses wide on the outside, 2 in the middle, 2 on the other outside. So let's rotate it back around and take a look at what we have. Okay, everything looks good. So now I'm going to do a sketch on this. And what I want to do here, and you'll notice now that my sketch plane is rotated. So my plane is at this weird angle. So while it looks like I'm flat to it, I'm really not. So I'm going to go, whoops. Why would you roll that way? Now I shouldn't have moved it. That was dumb. Okay, don't move yours. This is going to be a mess to get back. I don't need to get back. Wait, maybe do that. Maybe rotate that. And then go like that. I think I'm back now. Okay. So yeah, so we need to draw those cutouts. So I'm going to cut out a section. I'm going to start, actually let me project. I need to project my surfaces on here so I can see what I'm working with. Okay, and I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to actually hide the body. And now I can draw this rectangle. So I'm going to go here, but I'm going to go like up here. Click and drag a rectangle down. That top, the width of the rectangle should be 2 thicknesses. So thickness, TH enter times 2, enter. And actually should have dimensioned out. I'm going to make this a little longer. I don't know, 20. I'm just going to make it way, well, that was ridiculous. I don't need it that long. It doesn't matter. And then I'm going to do another one now. And now that one was lined up in the very edge. I'm going to do another one on the very outside edge here. I'm going to go here, there. And now I'm going to say this one is thickness times 2. And I'm going to drag this one way down as well. And then I'm going to do another one in the middle. And this one I'm just going to draw a rectangle in the middle somewhere. And then I'm going to dimension how thick it is. So it's just another way of doing it. So I just drew a random rectangle. Now I'm going to say, okay, no, I want it to be thickness here times 2, enter. And now the distance between these needs to be thickness, like 2 thicknesses distance between them. So I'm going to take this one and grab this side, and I'm going to, so I've got my dimensioning tool still. So push D if you still need to get that back. Click here, and I'm going to call this one thickness times 2, enter. Now it's centered. These two should also be just right. All right, now I'm going to turn my body back on, and you can see what I've done. I've created these like slots through here. So I just need to extrude them out now. So I'm going to hit extrude. This one, and this one, and I'm going to pull them up this way. And I'm going to just go far enough to where I cut. I don't want to get too carried away. Yeah, right there. I'm all the way through easily now. I'm going to click OK. Now if I look at it, now I've got those 3 slots cut in. Everything looks fantastic. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to add the front faces, like the calf, the shin, the top of the foot, and the front of the foot, and the bottom of the foot.